It would seem that today is Hypercar News Day on the channel, because later on we're going to be talking about Ferrari's very cool new hypercar, which has plenty of very cool tech in it as well. For now though, perhaps more impressively, Chevy has done crazy speeds in the 2025 spec C8 Corvette ZR1. If you'd have asked me, I'd have probably guessed maybe like a 220 mile an hour car tops, even with that kind of power. Of course, 1,064 horses is a lot, but it seems like a lot of supercars these days are kind of moving away from top-end speed and more so for acceleration, with the aero setup, the gearing, etc. And also, of course, with a lot of them having like hybrid tech and EV tech, they're not so much geared toward the top-end speed kind of thing anyway. Well, apparently not so with Chevy, because this is their fastest production vehicle ever now at 233.5 miles an hour, driven over a couple of days in Papenburg, Germany at the ATP location, the auto testing Papenburg. Very similar to Bugatti's kind of speed runs on the Volkswagen test track, big oval circuit it would appear. Of course, I'll use for visual reference some of Chevy's own promo footage from YouTube, and in terms of on-paper numbers, it was already an impressive car. Anyway, 5.5 litre LT7 engine, so of course V8 flat plane crank, 1,064 horses, 828 foot-pounds of torque, and they're running this one about as close as you can get, aside from the mandatory safety stuff, to what you can actually find in a road-going version of the 2025 spec ZR1, which of course is the whole point. They're not necessarily going for like a Bugatti Koenigsegg SSC level speed record, but this is arguably a more effective marketing strategy for Chevy than it is for those brands. Because let's be honest, somebody who's going to buy a Bugatti is going to do it anyway, regardless of the speed that it actually hit. One of the things here which I find quite fun as well is that one of the 5 or so drivers who actually got behind the wheel and attained those speeds was the president of GM himself, Mark Russ, who apparently is a top speed tester, which I wasn't aware of. He, I believe, actually did the quickest run, 233.5. They consistently got the car, in fact, 2 different test cars to over 230 miles an hour. The only thing about this which I find very funny, and incidentally I'll put a link to this down in the description if you want to check it out, there are so many things on the Chevy newsroom piece about this in their news article which are just way off base, and these are direct quotes. Number 1, fastest car ever built by an American auto manufacturer. Now, of course, in the video on YouTube and also later on in that article, they put some heavy caveats on that, but you can't just say something like that because it's just patently false. They didn't say production, they didn't say road legal, they didn't say any kind of caveats at all. Later on they clarified it, but talk about clickbait, actual clickbait there. Yes, it's the quickest you can buy right now, I guess, but even then, not really. The SSC Tutara is still quicker than that. Even after its botched initial run, it hit, what was it, like 289 miles an hour, I think, on their official run. So it's nowhere near that. And I get what they mean, in terms of like sub-$1 million production spec, but these are so many additional caveats that you need to make clear. The other thing which I found quite hilarious as well is that they called it the most powerful American-built production V8 ever, or something along those lines. Again, they were far too specific and far too fast and loose with the details in that article, because again, you get what they mean. But again, SSC Tutara, SSC Ultimate Aero, a variety of others as well, they never clarified enough what these broad sweeping statements mean, and even though us in the know what they mean, they're a bit too loose and a bit too broad and kind of a bit too happy with their own achievement there, I think. So that was the funny thing about all of this to me. Regardless of all of that funny stuff, it is a fantastic achievement though, and very, very cool that this Corvette is that quick. What I find really impressive about this though is not so much about Chevy and more about, well, funnily enough, another American brand to take on a Chevy. Back in the 1980s, Callaway built a Chevy, which of course many of you will be familiar with, certainly Project Gotham players, called the Callaway Sledgehammer. Based on the C4 Corvette, I believe that was around an 880 horsepower car, and that was quite a bit quicker than this. That was a 255 mile an hour Corvette back in the 80s. So yeah, it's quick, but things have been quick for quite a while. Of course, around a track, there'd be no comparison, but let's keep things in perspective here, Chevy, even when it comes to your own lineage. And of course, undeniably badass that you can now buy a 233 mile an hour Corvette. That's it for this news piece, of course. Stick around for the Ferrari news later on today, and until then, I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.